Hello, I'm author Nancy Flinchbaugh, and this is my podcast, Writing for Change. On this podcast, you'll hear from both myself and other writers who write for change. Today, I'm interviewing author Kathie Giorgio about her book, If You Tame Me, and her other works in which she writes for change. Kathie is a critically acclaimed author of 15 traditionally published books, which includes 8 novels, 2 story collections, an essay collection, and 4 poetry collections. Her 16th book, Let Me Tell You, Let Me Sing, a collection of poems, will be released in the fall of 2025. Her awards include Outstanding Achievement Award from the Wisconsin Library Association, the Silver Pen Award for Literary Excellence, the Pencraft Award for Literary Excellence, and the Erie Hoffer Award in Fiction. She's also been nominated for the Pushcart Prize in Fiction and Poetry. Her work has been incorporated into many visual art and musical events. Kathie is also the director and founder of AllWriters Workplace and Workshop, an international creative writing studio located in Waukesha, Wisconsin. I know Kathie very well because I've been meeting with her for over 12 years on Zoom. She's my writing coach, and she has coached me through writing, editing, and getting published my last 6 books. She's a great teacher and a coach, so please join me in welcoming Kathie Giorgio. Computer. Well, welcome, Kathie Giorgio. How are you today?
I am great. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing good, and it's very good to see you again. I know a lot about you, but the people listening don't know very much about you. So tell me a little bit about yourself and how you became a writer.
Oh my gosh. I don't think I became a writer. I think I was pretty much born a writer. I was telling stories before I knew how to write. And by the time I actually did learn how to write, then I started taking my children's picture books and I would use carbon paper, which is really dating myself, and trace the pictures out of them and then rewrite the stories the way I felt they should be written. So, I mean, I really do not remember a time that I wasn't writing. I was told I was a writer when I was 11 years old and in the 5th grade. And I was in a very remote section of northern Minnesota, very conservative. And we had a new teacher come in who was going to teach us on Thursdays creative writing. And I thought, whoa, I don't know what that is, but that sounds good. And she came in, and our first day, she put a record on the record player, again, dating myself, and it was the song Oh Shenandoah. And we were just supposed to write our impressions. She had us get up and read in front of the class, and the other kids were, there's a boat, there's a river. I got up and read an entire short story with characters, plot, dialogue, description, beginning, middle, end. And I finished, and the whole class was silent. And she was in the back of the room, and she said, "Oh my God, Kathie, you're a writer." And I was like, okay, it fit. So I published for the first time at 15 and then kept on going. And, my whole life revolves around writing.
Very cool. No question about it. You're a writer. What would you say are your goals in writing?
My goals in writing are primarily to bring awareness. I've been told that my writing is on the darker side, that it can be disturbing. I do write about difficult subjects. And I do that because, to me, your podcast is about writing for change. For me, the way to write about change is to raise people's awareness. It's not necessarily to offer solutions, because I think people are always more open to discussion than to lecture. So I write about situations, and I write about them personally with a character, so that it's not written about in a lofty way, it's written about in a life experience way. So we see characters going through these issues, how they feel, what they have to do, how they try to deal with it, to bring awareness to people that this is out there, that issues are more than black and white. There's all sorts of colors in every issue.
Okay, so you sort of discussed this, but how would you say some of your books are involved specifically in writing for change?
There are several. The two that come to mind right away, I have a novel called Rise from the River, which surrounds how people treat women who have experienced rape, and in particular the abortion issue when it comes to if a woman becomes pregnant by rape. That one I wrote because there were so many people that didn't realize that in 39 states in our country, and Wisconsin, where I am, is one of them, where if a woman becomes pregnant from a rape and the rapist is found, she cannot just give the child up for adoption. The rapist has to give up his parental rights in order for her to do that. If she chooses to keep the child, then the rapist's family has the right, while he's in prison, to contact her, to come visit the child. So we have grandparents' rights, we have aunts and uncles, we have cousins, and the rapist himself can ask for and will receive updates on the pregnancy and on the child. And when the child is born and the rapist gets out of prison, he is allowed visitation. So we don't think of that. You know, when this happens and the abortion rights people come out, they just say that abortion is wrong. We have to figure a way around that. How can we protect the woman from the rapist and his family if she is not allowed to abort? So I wanted to bring that out in the book, and I have a character who goes through the whole book, takes place during the first trimester as she decides what to do. The other book that comes to mind is If You Tame Me, which takes place in 2017. And it is a woman who is still single at the age, I think I have her at 51 or 52. I can't remember. And she is wondering, she's always been a feminist, a very strong feminist, but she's wondering if she can be considered a feminist if she thinks that her life is not complete without a partner. And she's straight, so it would be a male partner. So that book takes us through. I have I have references to Gloria Steinem in there. She talks to a book by Gloria Steinem throughout, trying to figure out what would Gloria do. She is reacting, of course, to the 2016 presidential election. She does not refer to the president by name. She only refers to him as he who shall not be named, because she won't say his name, and neither will I. And so it again, it's opening up this idea of equality. What does equality mean? And how do we achieve that? And it brings up discussions on several different levels.
Yeah, and you had several characters having different ideas about what feminism meant.
Right.
Including a male character said he was a feminist.
He was a feminist, yes. And can a man be a feminist? Well, of course a man can be a feminist. One of the things that caused me to write that book was I found out that young women were wearing T-shirts saying not the F word, meaning not a feminist. And when they were asked why they were wearing it, they said because feminists are man haters. And so I wanted to bring that up. What do you mean? You know, and how are we getting that impression? And what impression are we giving as feminists that younger generations are thinking this?
Now, the character in the book that was wearing that shirt at Victoria's Secrets, I think, she actually kind of changed in the book, didn't she?
She did.
Her perspective on that changed. And so that's maybe another way that you show change, is that when your characters change and open their minds to different ways of thinking about things. And
exactly.
The title, If You Tame Me, I imagine that had to do with the iguana. but then also the female, or how did you think about the
Well,
title?
If You Tame Me comes from the book The Little Prince. And it's that part is where the fox comes to the little prince and says, if you tame me, basically I'll be yours forever. And so the thought was, are we taming women? Is that what being a good woman is all about? So it came mostly from that. How submissive do we need to be?
It wasn't
Which we
really
don't.
about the iguana.
No, it wasn't only about, he's definitely in there. The iguana is a big part of the book. He's on the cover. And so Newt is huge in the book. And she has to learn, she adopts an iguana because she doesn't want to be a cliche. She doesn't want to be a cat woman. So she goes to a pet store on her birthday and she adopts an iguana. And she has to learn how to deal with it and how to let him be his most iguana self.
That was cute the way she read about relationships and then she applied that to her
Yes.
iguana and tried to make room for him to be himself. That was very cute. But then it's also a love story, right? So she
Yes, she meets
finds that she
Frank.
can be herself as a feminist and also in later life. I think she was turned 56 in the book and then
Was it 56? It's
56, yeah.
I'm writing the sequel, so I should know this, but it doesn't pop up into my head right away. And with Frank was her next door neighbor. And
He
that
was
was
62.
yes. That was more or less a lesson of sometimes we're looking too hard. And the answer is literally right next door.
And he was such a nice man.
He's a very nice man, yes.
That was very nice. So I had read some of your other books that were darker, and this one was a lot brighter, I thought, you know. And
This one was lighter. There's going to be some who still consider it dark. It's if you look on Amazon at my reviews, all the reviews are either like 5 stars or 1 star, and the 1 star ones are from the people who said that I was disparaging to the president. And so they made it into a political situation. And okay, if that's how you judge a book, I guess that's how you judge a book.
yeah. Well, so you say you're writing a sequel now. Are you exploring their marriage further, or what things are you going to explore in the sequel?
The sequel takes place, it starts on the day that Roe versus Wade is overruled. And as soon as that happened, I was like, I got to bring Audrey back. She's got to talk about this. And so in the sequel, Annabelle, the one who was wearing the not the F word t-shirt, finds out she is accidentally pregnant on the day that Roe versus Wade is overruled. And all of the organizations that offer abortion in Wisconsin are shut down. So she no longer has that option. She gets pregnant even while being careful. She's a party girl. She is presented as that in the first book. She's very single. She loves going out at night. She hits the club. She's very sexually active, but she's also very responsible. She takes the pill. And on a month where she didn't have quite enough money to pick up her prescription, she substituted condoms, but still managed to get pregnant anyway. So that's going to be one of the issues that comes up because now she doesn't know what she wants to do. If she does decide on abortion, she has to go over the border to Illinois, which still had abortion clinics open at that time. And so that I'm covering that. I don't even know what she's going to do yet as I'm writing this book. I have no clue. The book also is covering the topic of grief because we find out that after the pandemic, when the pandemic is calming down, Frank gets COVID and he dies. So it's not really seeing their marriage anymore. The marriage is essentially over because he's gone. And so Audrey is experiencing grief. A lot of people are saying to her, well, you were alone before Frank, you can do this again. But her response is, I was alone before Frank, but now I'm alone knowing that Frank was here, having the experience of Frank. And it's a whole different thing. So that's being included too.
Well, I guess you've had your own experience of grief, so maybe that's helpful. Is it helpful to write about grief when you're experiencing it?
Definitely. I have always turned to writing to help me through my own challenges. My husband died last June, excuse me, after being hit and run over by a passenger van. So the death wasn't sudden. He survived for 5 months before he passed away, but it was a very traumatic death, um, and very hard to deal with. When I have challenges myself, I tend to put things into fiction because if I can put my character through his or her paces and get them to come out the other side, I know I'm going to come out the other side. And it's a way for me to step back from the experience and see it from an observer's point of view. And it helps me get through it.
Well, I look forward to reading that and seeing how you're resolving. I'm kind of Kathie's my writing coach, so I've watched her walk through this with her, and I know it's very hard, but you're also making progress. So I guess we'll see that in the character and see
Yep.
it'll be to some extent how you've walked through your grief. Yeah, so
Right.
it's a great book to be writing right now.
Frank is also featured. My book that came out in 2023, Hope Always Rises, is set in a special gated community in heaven, for people who have chosen to end their lives. So that whole book has heaven in it, and God is in it. God is the main character. So in this book, much to my surprise, after dying, Frank shows up in heaven and he's in discussions with God because he feels that God has made a mistake. What in the heck is he doing here? He's supposed to be with Audrey. They found each other late in life. Why weren't they given more time? So that amazes me. I mean, we talk about should you outline or should you just write by the seat of your pants? And I'm definitely that. I let things come. And I was on the Oregon coast where I go once a year for my own writing retreat. And I had been walking on the ocean for my morning walk, and I ran into a couple who told me they were celebrating their 30th anniversary. And I told them that I would have been celebrating my 25th anniversary, except my husband died. And that ended the conversation very quickly. They left soon after that. And I was back in the house and I was watching them walk down the beach. And it was the first time that I realized my husband did not die, he was killed. It's a whole different thing. And, of course, I get told he's gone to a better place. And I thought Michael's better place was here with me and on this earth. And when I thought that, I thought, Frank wouldn't be too happy with this either. And so that afternoon, the heaven scene started showing up. So in a weird sort of way, this book is a sequel to If You Tame Me, but it's also including elements of another book, Hope Always Rises.
And Michael may be up there arguing with God too.
He would be.
Yeah, I enjoyed that about your book. The Frank's um, deceased wife also showed up. So,
Susan showed up. Yep.
well, is there
And
anything else?
that's
Yeah.
what I have to decide on this book too. Is Frank going to show up with Audrey like Susan did for Frank? Susan was his second wife, but she didn't show up until after she'd been gone for 3 years. So
And
I'm
then to try to encourage him to not go back to his first wife, Teresa, but to move forward with Audrey. So maybe
right.
Frank can find somebody for Audrey.
It might be a little too soon. He has only been gone, a short time, but yeah.
So is there anything else you'd like to talk about or add?
No, I mean, not really. I just, the big thing for me in terms of writing about change, I think a lot of people look at writing about change as being offering solutions, and it's not. I think if you I have a cat who's trying to show up.
Mhm.
Um, if you open things up to discussion, if you raise people's awareness, then we're more likely to get to a solution. But if we just preach, we're going to be turning more people off than turning more people on. So to me, it's always about making a community. So if my cat's head shows up, just say hello. Here she is. So
Is this Oliver or Cleo?
this is Cleo.
Cleo said Oliver's very proper and Cleo's what'd you call
a flop. Yep.
Flop.
She's just this big, hairy, casual cat. Yes.
Well, it's nice to see you, Cleopatra. Yeah.
In there.
You're almost be part of the video.
She wants to climb on me and I'm keeping her from doing that. So you don't need cattail in your video.
Well, it's nice to talk with you, Kathie, and I look forward to seeing you again next Monday.
All right, it sounds good.
Session. You can find Kathie online at kathiegiorgio.org. Also, I encourage you to follow her on Facebook at Kathie Giorgio and Kathie Giorgio Author. There's also a Facebook page for her writing studio, AllWriters Workplace and Workshop, LLC. You can follow her on Twitter at Kathie Giorgio and Instagram at KathieGio1. Thank you for coming and listening to this podcast. You can find out more about my writing for change on my website at nancyflinchbaugh.com or check out my YouTube channel for more videos at Nancy Flinchbaugh and also on Facebook at Nancy Flinchbaugh Author. The Writing for Change podcast is available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and Amazon. Just search for Writing for Change, Nancy Flinchbaugh. Have a great day.